Pondercast is supported by listeners like you who make a small monthly donation to help keep us independent and ad-free. Becoming a member has its privileges. We've just put up a new guided meditation, something that we call a grounding, and it's built for people who say they can't meditate. And I've been meditating for 15 years and I still say I can't meditate. So becoming a Patreon member will give you access to those guided meditations and give them a try. If you need to shift your headspace, redeem your day, take 10 minutes with a grounding. I think we could all use a little help there. So go to patreon.com/pondercast and become a Pondercastronaut today. Let's Pondercast. You remember the song, "It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine." Great, catchy pop tune by REM, kind of captured the moment back in 1987. Oh my God, it boggles the mind that 32 years have passed since that song. And you know, I think that attitude still kind of holds true today for most people. We're all like that sometimes. I mean, here we are just living our lives. And the big picture, the truly big picture, we shove away at the very back of our brains. But then there's a moment. Something comes along. Like maybe you're at the grocery store and all of a sudden all you can see is the plastic covering every piece of produce. Or maybe you just read about another endangered species being added to the list. Or, like my latest experience, a report comes out saying that your country is warming much, much faster than originally thought. And suddenly the reality of the big picture hits you. And it hits you in the stomach and in the heart. And it shuts you down. So this is a Pondercast for those times, because this is what's happening all around us right now. We live in a broken world, and we broke it. We are asking more of the earth than it can give. And we're all watching the earth get sicker and sicker, and it's hard to watch. It's so much easier to turn away, to distract ourselves with anything else, from politics to entertainment to just the daily busyness of our lives. Actually, it would be so much easier to be in denial. Then all you'd have to do is be searching out convenient truths for you that absolve you of any responsibility, just to give you justification to continue to do nothing. To really register what is happening and feel that sadness and grief is a much, much harder road. Mostly we humans veer between distraction and despair. These are our times. We are entering the dark rages. That's what I've been calling it. And the way that we are responding to this climate catastrophe, it feels like a repeat of something out of the Dark Ages. Toni Morrison makes a great case that that's exactly where we're at when she says, it may be the most defining characteristic of our times that, again, walls and weapons feature as prominently now as they did in medieval times. So this is what we got to work with. This is our moment. How to live well in these troubled times without falling into the expanding darkness of ignorance and fear. Well, the first choice we have to make is whether we look away or whether we resolve to bear witness to what is happening. To live fully and meaningfully, we need to keep our eyes and our hearts open. And that is hard work. I found another name for what's happening to us, and this has a poetic flavor that feels good to me, and one that also offers a view of the future. It sounds hopeful. I'll take it. Environmentalist Joanna Macy says that our time on Earth right now comes at a critical moment, and we are witnessing two things happening simultaneously: the great unraveling and the great turning. The world does feel like it's unraveling. But do you see the great turning too? The great turning. New ideas of how to live within our ecosystem. New ways to move forward. Can you see people around you who are part of the great turning? Unraveling and turning. I like that. I think because it at least implies movement. Can you see and feel us turning? None of us know how this is going to turn out, right? Do we unravel completely? Do we turn back just in time? What do you think? You may feel like you don't have enough information to decide where you stand on this, and you're not sure of whose information to trust. Or you may feel that we're living in the end times, and the doomsday clock has us living at 2 minutes to midnight, so perhaps for you the great unraveling cannot be stopped. Or Maybe you think that we'll figure it out. Some smart scientist humans will solve this and life will go on. The same scientists that we've been ignoring for decades, yes, they'll figure it out and solve it. It doesn't matter where you place yourself in those three scenarios. One thing should unite us all. And that is the pain we feel in seeing our world suffer, seeing the planet grow sicker. Maybe we should actually just leave the outcome of the Earth story aside. Just forget for a moment about the arguments on how to move forward dealing with climate change. Can we step back and just allow ourselves to feel something about what is happening? Might that help us to be able to move forward? Picture this. Every week, you and your neighbors gather at that old big church 2 streets over. And you sit together and you talk about the changes you're seeing and how you feel about that. Feel what? The loss, the sadness, the frustration, and you all feel it together. What would you call that kind of service? It's kind of like a great funeral, which is not all completely grief and loss, because people share stories. So people would be sharing stories of when they remember their grandmother's barn when it was so full of barn swallows, so full you couldn't hear yourself think. Or someone will tell a story about how they can remember taking their kids to the Humber River right there in the center of the city to watch the salmon jump up the fish ladder. This would be a gathering to simply acknowledge and grieve what we've lost and what we're losing, a service to bear witness. Might it shift something in us simply by allowing ourselves to feel the sadness that is there and feel it together with other people? Might it then be easier to become part of the great turning? Might it give us back something that we're missing? And then, after a little bit of quiet in this old church, someone would stand up and clear their throat and head up to the pulpit with a bunch of papers on a clipboard and would update you on the neighborhood action. Who's taking on helping with the rain barrel installations? Who's updated the electric car sharing site for Willard Avenue? And there's a sign-up sheet at the back of the church for the vegetable garden duties for this spring. They've made some big changes this year. Last year, we ended up with way too many zucchini and absolutely no cauliflower. So this year, there's a sign-up sheet. Market days are going to be at the church. They'll be on Wednesday and Saturday for this year. And everyone's going to have all their extra produce to the church by 7:30 a.m. We're also starting to collect mason jars again in preparation for the canning season about to launch. You know where to put them, down in the church basement. And there is talk about the week of heavy rainfall expected. Reminders to clear the sewer grates. And the rain emergency crew needs more volunteers for Friday. There's updates on our plan to use the church as a hub for an emergency mini-grid electrical system. And there's an update on the fruit tree plantings on the boulevards. And then there would be cookies and food, and you would leave feeling full and energized as you head back home to your home office with plans for your garden and how great it will be to get help sandbagging around the window wells this time. I can picture all of that, and I can picture me being part of it. Can you? You can tell our human history in a million different ways, but think of yourself as living in the third movement. First, there was the agricultural revolution, then the industrial revolution, and now the sustainability revolution, the necessary revolution, the great turning. You give it a name. The great turning is all around you if you choose to look. The protests, the challenges, the now millions of organizations working for sustainable growth and social justice, the new technology, new ways of living. This is the largest social movement on earth. And we're going to need it to move from the old mindset and model of economic growth to something new, a circular economy. We are entering life recovery mode. Being part of that adventure sounds way more invigorating than the anger and resentment and despair we are all soaking in. So here's what's so hard to understand. Why doesn't watching the earth suffer so increase our love and empathy for the planet? We never get to empathy because we turn away before we have to feel the grief, because we don't want to feel responsible, because to feel our part in this unraveling means we would then have to confront how powerless we feel about doing something about it, and then go ahead and try to do something anyways. We've had our DNA programmed to think that any love we feel for our planet is not the same as the love we feel for each other, for our families. We removed ourselves from the ecosystem and placed ourselves above it, and that changed how we feel about the earth. But love is love is love is love. If your child is ill, you don't step away because you don't want to feel the grief and the worry. You get closer. You do what you can. You comfort. You find help. You love and grieve and take action all at the same time. Can we find the capacity in our hearts to include loving the ground we stand on in the same way? Can we reconnect to this natural world and see it as family and see ourselves as part of it? Forget science, religion, politics, ideology, propaganda, and all the things inside us that are working to steer us away from seeing the earth suffering and feeling for it and doing something about it. Can we get back to just feeling the sadness we have been avoiding? Isn't that something we all share? And isn't it something we can all do together? Because there is a gift in all of this. Hallelujah. Because everything I've been talking about sounds just fucking awful. No one wants more despair dumped in their laps. But here's the gift. The world, the long-suffering, abused, crippled, broken world, still has something to gift us in return. It has beauty to show us, moments of absolute peace to share. The earth has been waiting so long for us to show up and rejoin it. We are all part of the great unraveling. How might allowing ourselves to feel grief and our love for the earth, how might that change us? Because we need to bring all of our humanity to these times. We need to be the best that we can be moving forward. Most of us have stopped imagining a future at all. Our politicians grab at the past for solutions. Let's get back to mining coal. Let's take more oil out of the earth. The combustion engine will never die. We cling to past ideas out of fear of the future. And fear is turning us into cold-blooded creatures. Tribal and divided, we're losing our capacity for tolerance and compassion. We are becoming rigid and unmovable and heartless. Now is the moment for more humanity, not less. Make no apologies for feeling deeply about the planet, and do not hide those feelings. Your humanity is exactly what the world needs more of right now.